Hello and welcome to the Lacrosse Show. I'm Connor Wilson. Joining me as always, Mr. Mark Powers. How you doing, Mark? Good to have you on.
Great to be here.
Excellent. Also joining us again this week, making it 2 in a row, almost a regular on the show, Chris Marshall. How you doing, sir?
Fantastic. Happy Halloween.
Good to have you on. Do they celebrate Halloween a little differently out in California? Is it true?
Yes. The weather's much nicer. So as you can imagine, so is the scenery.
Well, there you go. Making us feel bad day and night with your California weather. Fair enough. Let's get into it. We got fall ball. Speaking of California weather, we had 2 teams head out there. We had Virginia and Princeton. We had a great video. Put that up on LAS from BHS Video Dad. He's a legend in his own right. You got to check him out. What do you guys think? I mean, we also got Air Force upsetting Notre Dame in a meaningless fall ball game by a score of more or less. What do you guys think about this? I mean, what are you taking away from this weekend? Anything big? Mark?
Well, first, I like that it's 2 Western teams, and it's 2 Western teams that are playing later in the fall ball schedule, so it might have something to do with the weather, although obviously not in the case of Air Force. What I'm taking from the game is I love that the San Francisco event at Kezar Stadium seems to be an ongoing thing, and it seems to be reoccurring and getting bigger and better every year. I like that they've added a clinic component to it. I see nothing but success for that tournament in the future. As far as the game, not surprised to see Virginia win. Nice homecoming for the Emorys. Princeton's had some California players as well. But Air Force, huge story. I mean, they were a great team last year, looking to get some pieces put together, but we knew they could score. Obviously, this fall, they're really galvanized by the loss of the coach's wife in a horrible car accident. Yeah. So, any time a team goes through adversity like that, they're bound to rebound, especially them being a service academy. I'm looking forward to see what they could do. What did you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, I have to second what you're saying about the San Francisco Classic. I mean, I was at the game last year. I got to see Ohio State take on Lehigh, and it's a really great event. It was really well attended. I'm glad to hear that they're adding the clinic component as well. But I mean, you see some brands putting some real firepower into that event. So John Christmas was out there last year as well as Paul Rabel. And just seeing how excited the kids are when you see the video from BHS Video Dad, which is fantastic. I love those videos. Is exciting. And I mean, as far as the upsets or wins or losses, I mean, I don't think you can put a whole lot of stock into what goes on in the fall ball. I mean, it's a really great opportunity to see your first line take a few runs, but I think a lot of it's just taking stock of what came in and
right.
And seeing who's going to be able to help you in the spring.
You were surprised to see that score, though.
I mean, a little surprised. I mean, Notre Dame is a legit contender. I think coming up. I mean, I think they had a good season last year. I think it could build on that, and I mean, I think they're legit. So I mean, it's. But like I said, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't, yeah, it's completely meaningless.
Everybody starts back at 0-0. I mean, you get some things out of the fall for sure. We'll be sure to ask Billy Bitter that later on in the show. He played a little bit of D1 lacrosse. Maybe we can get his read on the importance of fall ball. So, we'll save that question for later. For now, we're going to work on something a little different, concussions. We had an article by Nate Fritz. He's doing some work up at BU, really interesting stuff about concussions. He told a little bit of a personal story, kind of a personal experience. Do you guys have any concussion story that stand out in your mind, or is it kind of not something that came up in your playing careers?
As far as receiving one or knowing about somebody else or a notable
Receiving
story?
one, seeing one, giving one. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, for me, he might not get talked about as some of the more famous players, but a guy where it really resonated for me recently in the sport of lacrosse was Merrick Thompson. And he was really in his prime, scoring tons of goals, and now he doesn't play lacrosse anymore. And it's really unfortunate. Obviously, I think we're collectively across the board re-examining all of contact sports. Be it football, hockey, lacrosse, everybody's taking a hard look at the contact that takes place, trying to legislate to make it safer. I certainly think all efforts in that vein are necessary and important. So, it's not an issue about changing the game here. This is about changing people, or more importantly, saving people's lives.
Yeah, and I mean, during the time when I played sports in college, the worst concussion incident that I saw was actually on the soccer field. So, I mean, I think across the board, it's one of those things where it's not a sport-specific problem. It's something that across the board happens, and it's a risk we take as athletes. Risk I understood when I played and when I still play. But I mean, I think that at least from the technology standpoint, it seems like the helmet companies are really stepping their game up because they know this is such an issue at all levels. And I mean, I think that that's really important, that the companies are taking a progressive stance and trying to make progress towards stopping concussions altogether.
That's actually a really good point, and I didn't think about it before coming on to talk about this, but Warrior did just release that new helmet, and I don't know enough about exactly the technology that's gone into it, but they have consulted with auto manufacturers, and it seems like that new offering is the first in what we're seeing of people that are really trying to go above and beyond what's necessarily the standard.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that although I think that safety is very important, it's obviously important to have a helmet that functions and protects you well. I do think that the change, it has to happen in the rules and the way that the game is played, because you can have a giant piece of foam on your head. If you're running full speed at somebody else and they're running full speed at you and you slam into them, your brain is going to jar against your head, even through whiplash, and you can't necessarily stop that with a helmet. So, I think it's interesting, but I'm glad for one to see that the rules are changing. I'm going to be interested to see how it plays out if we get a lot of penalties this year.
Do you like how that's being called? Because there were times where there have been some questionable high hits that people are sorry about them getting called. Obviously, look, I think we would both agree that that's a necessary casualty. But what do you think about how that's being legislated? I think it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I remember as a defenseman myself, I used to hit guys high because you knew you could knock them over that way. They were a little more vulnerable that way. I got hit high sometimes by riding attackmen because they knew they could do that to me too. I mean, it was a give and take thing, but I think we do need to remove that from the game because it's not necessarily part of the sport, and I don't know that it always has been either. So,
agreed.
Yeah, it's something we can certainly bring back as a topic again in the future. Let's move on to greener pastures, possibly even greener than Chris's California, the Hawaii Invitational. I've never made it out, and I'm feeling like I'm missing out big time. Malcolm Chase writes for us each year about it, plays for Wimmer, has an amazing time. I mean, is this a king of tournaments or what?
I'll let you go first, Chris. I mean, you're the Cali man. What do you know about Hawaii?
I mean, I think it pretty much has to be the king of tournaments. I mean, you just look at the players that turn up to play in this tournament. Everybody wants to go to Hawaii, and it's a star game across the board in every division. I mean, from the elite to the masters to, I mean, everybody who's playing and winning those tournaments are top level guys. And I've read the articles from Malcolm, and actually Johnny Vegas Namer had some pretty cool pictures that he put out from the Total Lacrosse team that went to play. Didn't do as well as I think he probably hoped, but the fact is everybody wants to play in that tournament, and I think it's right up there with Vail in terms of the best tournaments you can go to as a men's player.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big difference is at Vail you have depth. I mean, there are teams upon teams that are just top notch, and out at Hawaii, who's going to the finals.
Yeah, great point.
At least in the elite division, there are two teams. It's going to be Dirty Lax, it's going to be Wimmer, and it's going to be a heck of a game.
Right. Formerly the Crease Monkeys, though. So, I mean, there has been, some slight parity, but I would agree overall among that elite division, it's certainly way more top-heavy than it is inclusive, and that comes with the distance. Those great players, unless they have a sponsorship or other hookup, aren't really able to get themselves out there. It's also a tough time of year, but you're right. That's the one tournament I have on my bucket list to get to. One thing that I really like about the tournament is that this has been an opportunity for Americans to see the Japanese game and how they've taken with the sport. It's always fun to see the pictures of the Japanese guys and hear the stories about how celebrity obsessed they are with the likes of Rabel and Pinnell. And I'll tell you what, I got a chance to play against Tokyo University this summer at Berlin. They're no joke. I mean, these guys were warming up 2 hours before the game. Ridiculous stick skills. I mean, we got lucky. We were more physical, control the ground balls, but Japan is here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them making more of a foothold and making more gains as a result of those players coming back from Hawaii and seeing that competition.
Yeah, I actually would have loved to have seen Japan send over like 2 training teams to Hawaii this year. I thought that would have been a really cool.
They probably basically did that. They just
basically, right? Yeah. It's a good move. I like it. I mean, all this international competition has been a good thing. It's pretty exciting. So let's bring it back home a little bit. We had the LXM Pro Atlanta. Chris, you were down there in person. I mean, I saw it on TV, but nothing like a first-hand perspective. What did you think about the game?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it was another really great game. I mean, what you kind of come to expect this season, especially. I mean, the series is at 4-2 now with STX coming away with the victory. But I mean, it took an 8-goal run at the end of the game to win it, and it just came down to Peter Braum and Sam and Xander Ritz just taking over the game, and some really unlucky breaks and bounces for Maverick, but. Fantastic game, fantastic event. I'd have to say it's probably one of my favorite events so far. There were a lot of fans there, a lot of really excited kids, and it's really exciting to see that happening in a place that's not a traditional lacrosse hotbed. I mean, it's a lot of lacrosse and a lot of fun stuff going on down there.
I mean, people love to generalize about different lacrosse areas. What do you think about the scene in Atlanta? I'm
talking about having an MLL franchise.
Yeah, I know. I'm dying to hear. Like, what did you think being there firsthand?
I mean, it was fantastic. I know I was talking on the broadcast with Nick Gradinger about it, and in the town of Milton, which is where the event actually was, on the sign entering the town, it said "Home of the state lacrosse champion," Milton High School team. And so there's a lot of pride there for the lacrosse that they're playing. And I mean, I think that's the first step. They want to continue progressing and being better, and they're just excited about having a high-level lacrosse game in their area. And I think it could absolutely support, a full-time professional team.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they're the next natural hotbed in my mind. They're a large metro area. It's a wealthy populace. Whether or not people want to acknowledge that or not, that goes into it. Yeah, I think Atlanta is certainly signaling their arrival with events like this. But as far as the game is concerned, what's interesting to me is it keeps showing up how STX has some really effective one-on-one guys, and they have a couple guys that can really get their own shot effectively anytime they want. And it's not to say that Maverick doesn't have those guys, to an extent they do, and we're going to be talking to one of them soon enough. But they play more of a team-oriented game, and sometimes, it's harder for them to mount a comeback. I don't think I could see Maverick, fortunately or unfortunately, mount an 8-goal comeback the same way STX could. That's not their game, but look out for them. The games are much closer. I think the scoring disparity has spread out, and now this is really when I'm seeing the product that I wanted to see coming into this year. The teams getting a chance to see each other a little more. This next couple months where they have two events each in November and December is obviously make or break, but I think it's going to be, for the teams and their record-wise. But it'll be really interesting, to objectively be able to see the league almost over what amounts to a season right now. I'm excited.
Yeah, and the thing
without further ado, we got to bring Billy on.
Yeah,
we got to bring Billy on. I mean, he's
sorry
here.
Sorry to segue.
And I don't want to shortchange Billy's brother either, because we're also joined by EW Bitter of Bitter Lacrosse, which is fantastic. Billy, EW, thank you guys very much for coming on. How are you?
How you guys doing? Doing well, thanks. Thanks
Excellent.
for having us.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. So, Billy, you were just down in Atlanta. I mean, you've grown up in a number of different hotbeds. I think Long Island, Manhasset certainly qualifies as one. Deerfield for a year. I mean, then you went down to North Carolina. What do you think about the scene in Atlanta? What was that like?
I thought it was run real well. I thought, it definitely, the sport in general was growing down there a lot, which is great. Going to school in North Carolina, Atlanta is not too far, and just over those 4 years down in the South, I could see the sport grow tremendously. And I thought it was a great event. The crowd was pretty big, which is awesome. And then, and before the game, during the day, the clinics, a lot of kids showed up for that, which is another fun part of these LXM of the LXM experience. So it was overall fantastic event.
Had you been there before?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry. Had you been there before? I know you travel a ton for lacrosse. Whether it's
I've been to Atlanta before. I've done probably 2 or 3 clinics down there before over the past 5 or 6 years I've been down there.
So we were just talking. Sorry to cut you off before coming on, but it sounds like you could speak objectively to this about whether or not. I mean, in my opinion, I think Atlanta's signaling their arrival here as a viable, almost hotbed of lacrosse. Now we're talking about having an MLL team. You guys obviously just came through. More and more high caliber players are coming out of there. What do you think about that and their growth down south?
Well, I think it's definitely growing, and anytime the sport grows into a big city like Atlanta, I think it's a great thing. And I think it's definitely a city that people would want to play in and play in front of. Being such a large city, and yeah, I'm excited about it, and I think it'll definitely do well down the road.
Now, EW, you guys are also with Bitter Lacrosse doing some stuff down south. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what you've seen from the community, the people that you've met, and what the response has been like for you getting involved down there?
Right, so we're down in Charleston right now, and we are hosting a tournament this weekend in Charleston. This is our second year down here. And we've been, over the past 2 years, gotten to know the market pretty well and gotten a better understanding of the different programs and the general size of participation amongst the youth players, and not just Charleston, in the region. So there's a lot of teams that come from Georgia, and there's a good group of teams that come from North Carolina as well. And just over the past 18 months, we've seen tremendous growth just in the new clubs that are popping up, and new programs and new people coming in to help coach. So we can see some of that growth in just the past 18 months that we've been involved in the Southeast. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, is because we see the growth. And Florida is another piece of the Southeast that's also a huge market for lacrosse. And it's almost as if all these relatively newer markets, whether it's Georgia or North Carolina or Florida, are all competing with each other to kind of be the best and make their statement and make their place. And it's exciting because when you go to a new place like South Carolina, and you go to a town that just started a lacrosse program, the kids are they're so excited about the sport that you can kind of get that feel that right away that they're so passionate about the sport and competing and wanting to be the next big program. And for something that's so new, to see that fresh look of love for a sport, it's really cool to see that in a group of 13-year-olds who are just picking up a sport they've only been playing for 2 years, and now they want to play nonstop year round. It's the only thing they want to do.
Does that give guys like you, both of you who've been involved with the sport for so long, does that give you a renewed focus? I mean, do you get something out of that experience just as much as the kid does who's like, oh my God, I'm meeting a Bitter, but it's like, are you getting something out of that too, where it's like, these kids really do look up to us. We have something to give back to the game here.
Without a doubt. I get super excited, probably just as excited as the kids get. That's one of the main reasons why I chose to work full time within the sport of lacrosse. Just because I love coaching and I love giving back. I was fortunate enough coming from a hotbed area, in Long Island, like a town like Manhasset. I had the privilege to get great coaching as a youth player, and I just love giving back and traveling around the country and promoting Maverick, promoting Bitter Lacrosse, and also promoting the game and the growth of it, and hopefully giving the kids what they need to become a next big player, or just to have fun with the sport.
Yeah, and I'll say something real quick about where we are in terms of in the Southeast, or whether it's up in Stowe in the Northeast when we do an event. None of the places we're doing events are traditional hotbeds. And the reason why we're in these places is because we're choosing sort of locations that are fun for the whole family, and because they're not traditional hotbeds, a lot of the people coming into these events they're from all over the place, and a lot of times from newer towns and programs that are relatively new. And so when we're putting on an event, it's for us, it's a way for us to try to give them something, a really positive experience in an event, and we pay a lot of attention, and we're trying to be very careful with how we put them together, because we're focused on doing that. And it's something, it's a way for us to, because growing up on Long Island, it's almost the time we grew up and played through there, you take it for granted, but when you realize that we're in Long Island, or whether it was on Long Island or Maryland or a traditional hotbed that's had lacrosse for 50 years, we were benefactors of that, because we had coaches that all played for many years, and at the youth level, that's a very important asset to have as a player. You don't realize that when you're in 5th grade, but the guy who coached you was a 4-time All-American at Cornell, and had coached, he's been coaching for 30 years. So
big difference.
Yes, and that's a key part at the youth level, and so for us, we now reflect back on that and understand how grateful and how fortunate we were, and we try to bring that to these new areas that we go and put on an experience and an event and give them something that as much as we can from what we've learned from the game and what we liked and what we didn't like in a tournament or a teaching experience.
Right. So you guys were just touching on it. Talk about your lacrosse upbringing. I remember when you first got to UNC, Billy, and on the roster it says like Manhasset by way of Stowe, by way of Deerfield, and it's kind of like, what is this? So talk about that. Where you played in high school at Manhasset, and how you arrived at Deerfield. I think more and more people are starting to learn about PGing, what that means, and basically talk about how you got to UNC and what that ride was like, and some of those people that influenced it.
Yeah, so I grew up, born and raised in Manhasset, and went through the high school there 4 years. And during my junior year, now I guess it's back then, when I was in high school, your junior year would be the year, sort of the end of that junior year into that summer, going into your senior year would be the year that you'd be looked at by colleges. I know now it's much earlier than that these days, but yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed. But unfortunately, that year I fractured a hip muscle and missed that opportunity to be looked at. And so I had
Did
two
you do
sisters.
that skiing?
No, it was just over. It was a stress fracture. It was just over a period of time, putting too much pressure on the bone in the hip, and it eventually cracked.
So there is such a thing as too much quickness.
I think that's the same thing that happened to Bo Jackson, actually.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
You juke yourself right out of your hips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had two older sisters that had gone to prep schools in the New England area, so my parents were relatively familiar with New England schools, and they had heard about a postgraduate year, which is just an extra year. Basically, you repeat your senior year. So your senior year at your high school ends up becoming the recruiting year, so that's what it was for me in Manhasset. And so that summer going into Deerfield is where I must have played pretty well or okay at an event where a UNC coach was there and saw me, and he gave me a call. And since I was relatively frustrated with not getting too many looks or anything like that, I kind of as soon as the UNC coach called, I got pretty excited and said yes pretty quickly and sort of just jumped on. Because I guess it was kind of a long wait for me, and so yeah, I sort of decided pretty quickly, and obviously my parents were behind the decision, and the rest of my family was, which is important. And then so went off to Deerfield, which was a great school, loved it there.
How'd you like the Founders League?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, so we played Hotchkiss and Salisbury schools and all those great schools, and played there for a year, great year. And the thing about Deerfield, you have to play a sport every. They do trimesters every semester, which is great for kids. And so I played soccer, I skied there, and then lacrosse in the spring. We did well. We went 16-0 there, and that was a great year, a lot of fun. It is a shame that I was only there for a year, because you sort of get close with these kids you're graduating with. It would have been nice to have a couple more years with them, but again, I also liked Manhasset. It would have been nice to have both. But
7 years of high school, right?
Yeah. Why not?
My post-grad is do high school all over again.
I sort of realized it was time to get out of high school.
Right. So, I mean, it's only a natural segue, but clearly you really blew up on the scene at UNC. I'll never forget being in MetLife Stadium when you really arrived, in my opinion. I mean, holy jeez. I mean, everybody was talking about that day, and it was like, yeah, did you see that? Like, did that really happen? Talk about what that day was like and what it meant for you. Coming to UNC, a team that had been struggling, and really almost single-handedly helping them come back into some prominence and notoriety.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the credit has to go on my coaches there, Coach Myers, Coach Bresci, and also my dad, who on the side, my freshman year, didn't play much, but he kept telling me that I can be a player, at the top of at the collegiate level if I really put my mind to it, put my effort to it. And at times I said no way. I was just sort of satisfied already, kind of just being at a school like UNC and enjoying my time, which of course is not the way to look at things. And he pushed me enough where eventually I sort of turned a switch on and kind of lifted my level up in practice during the fall in my sophomore year. And the coach, Coach Myers was intense coach, knew his X's and O's very well, and he really got it through my head that I can be a player that will excite the fans and excite the team. And that was, I guess, a game where it was being televised, and it was fortunate that it was on TV and a big event, like playing in MetLife Stadium. I think that was actually the old MetLife
Giant Stadium, yeah.
Stadium. Or Jets, I don't know.
I was lucky enough to get a
RIP Jets.
preview of that year at the Glastonbury tournament when you were playing for North Shore.
Oh yeah, that was I remember that event. That was a fun one.
You were destroying people. We had like 5 or 6 guys trying to guard you for Mex, and it just was.
Was that going into sophomore year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Maybe that was the event then.
Yes, you were ripping us up. We're a bunch of D3 guys, so thanks for that. Much appreciated. How did you get? I mean, you obviously talked about the great coaching you've had at Manhasset and at Deerfield and again at UNC. But when you were a little bit younger and all the other kids are kind of doing the same thing, going to practice, and this is true for all of you guys. I mean, everybody in your family has seen success on the lacrosse field. How did you guys get better? Was it backyard lacrosse? Did you have a wall that everybody was kind of addicted to? I mean, what's the Bitter family secret here for lacrosse?
Combination.
Yeah, well, the one thing that we were fortunate enough to have is our neighbors had a brick garage, and the back of it was just a flat brick wall in our backyard. So we were, as soon as as soon as my dad or my parents moved in there, the first thing he did was go across to our neighbor's house and ask if we can have this side of the wall to use. And from that point on, every single member in our family was out there, and again, it was literally steps from the house, so we had no excuse. And again, it wasn't a crazy amount of time; it was 20 to 30 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week. And the thing my dad always stressed for us was to only use your offhand, when we first started, and eventually, being born a righty, I ended up becoming a lefty. And from that point on, anytime I went back to my right hand, it would be just as natural. But again, that's something that's stressed a lot by coaches and kids. Kind of, I don't know if they realize how important it is, because again, it is such a simple drill, and I guess at times can be boring, but it is a drill that goes a very, very long way. And one thing my dad made it a little bit more challenging, brought a little more excitement, was he took chunks out of the wall with a hammer. So there were different spots in the wall, so the ball would come back at any angle, a different angle every time you threw it. So that would again also help. Again, I'm not suggesting to kids to go up to their high school and destroy their if you have a wall.
Use the natural contours.
Yeah. I'll jump in quick. There's a lot of things obviously that go into making a great player, and you could ask any really good player what it was. And the wall that we had is a key thing that we use a lot, and the other things that we did were probably different than what another great player might do, but at the end of the day, it's the amount of time and dedication, how much you love the game. And in time, we did a lot of things, a lot of other sports as well. And they were all complementary to what we were doing in lacrosse, whether it was soccer or ski racing. Ski racing, you develop a lot of balance. Soccer, you develop a lot of endurance. And we were just always passionate about the sports that we were playing, and we had good mentors, our parents, my father, who was always pushing us and put us in those positions to compete. And ultimately in lacrosse, he was a great person to have access to every day because he's our father and he was a great coach. So he was always out there in the backyard with us, and so that was fortunate. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the passion and how much you love the game, and we all did, and that's passed down from our parents. So I'd say we were very fortunate to have that. And but if any kid who's passionate about it, he has as much potential as anybody else. It's just a matter of effort and time.
Now, were you guys more internally or externally competitive with each other? Sorry, Chris.
We were always competitive with each other.
Yeah. Mostly internally. I think when we were out in the public, we would behave and
we
keep to ourselves. But
it didn't matter what sport. We've always been everyone. There's 6 of us, 6 kids, and my sisters. Whether it was skiing or we still compete all the time and stuff, and we're all together as a family. We've all done different things, but whether it's in marathons or lacrosse or skiing or you name it, we're a competitive group when we get together.
Nice, Chris. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, well, what's you mentioned your father quite a bit, and little things that he did to help you guys improve as a player. What was his lacrosse background?
My father played in Manhasset as well, so he went through the whole youth program in Manhasset and played in high school there, and then went off to BC and he played at Boston College. He was an All-American there. This was when they had a team, obviously. And
he's trying to bring it back.
He's actually been very good.
Both. I was part of the last recruiting class. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's got to happen. And
he thinks it's happening.
I mean, if you ask him, he said.
No, it's not happening. That ain't happening.
Well, so he went through the same system. I mean, talk about, that's one of the benefits of growing up when we did in a town like Manhasset. You grow up in a program that's been there for 50 years and some of these programs in other parts of the country have only been around for 5 years, have made tremendous strides. But if you're in Maryland or New York, that program's been there for 50 years. These other programs are catching.
What's the Classics got? What, 100+ editions, right? Something like that. I mean, we're talking about the originals. We're talking about Jim Brown stomping Brown.
Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
he went through the same program, and then he ended up coming back. We moved back to Manhasset when he had a family, and he coached in Manhasset for 25 years at the youth program.
So you had a real asset in your father. Wow, that's ridiculous. I didn't realize how much of a presence he had in the sport. No, but I mean, hey, you gotta give the old man his due. Now that I'm hearing much more about your pedigree, I certainly understand how you guys have turned out the way you are in the sport. So I hate to keep talking about your evolution in the sport, but now you're working with Maverick and you're on LXM Pro. We were just talking about the Atlanta event and what you thought about down south, but tell me a little bit about what you felt about the game and how you feel about Maverick's trajectory going into the last 2 months. I think it's you guys got a real opportunity to do some damage here.
Yeah, I think it's huge, and one main aspect is being able to compete with our actual competitor, in the business world now on the field. And I think that alone is a huge step in the right direction. Because again,
do you take it that way? Does that factor in? Or are you like, man, I really gotta do something on Kyle, or do something to show that Maverick belongs? Do you take that sense of ownership?
I think I just come from a different connection to Maverick, and after the game I'm upset that obviously the team lost, or excited if we win, but also for the team wise and for myself, but also for for the brand of Maverick, because I like to look at it. I put a lot of time in spreading the word about of our brand Maverick Lacrosse, and obviously I'm doing all these clinics across the country to promote the game of lacrosse, but also I'm always carrying around a gear bag and have some of the new advanced gear with me that Maverick makes, and that's another great part. I like to show off the new gear, and that's probably the one thing the kids even listen to me about is when I show off the gear, and they just get super excited about that. And again, playing at a competitive level like the LXM Pro Tour, I think is great for Maverick and the brand itself. And I think a lot of the people that work at Maverick and the guys above us at Bauer are super excited about it as well.
I mean,
so
do you have any of that gear you can show us now?
Yeah, actually, of course I do. You should ask. I have it right next to me. So you guys have probably seen some of the stuff being featured on the LXM Pro Tour. One of the things I'm excited about is
hold those up a little bit so I can see what you're showing me.
This is the Wonder Boy glove.
Pretty.
And this is the one that we use in LXM. This is the LXM logo, and I'm just excited about the whole line. It'll be a whole line, so it'll have elbow pads, shoulder pads, and then obviously the glove. And again, you can customize the gloves for whatever your team colors are. And I just think it was a great idea in terms of using the name Wonder Boy and Maverick because of the Wonder Boy shaft. And I
Make
think
it
that's
synonymous. Yeah.
that was sort of what brought Maverick on the map way back in 2005. Was I think I don't know if you guys remember the camo.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was
Couldn't go anywhere without seeing that thing.
Yeah, that name has really sticks with kids in their head. And so again, this glove is a fantastic glove. One of the great things about our gloves and our new gear coming out is how much lighter it is from our past gear. So it'll be some of the lighter technology used and some of the lighter padding on the market in general.
I did get to try that glove on at the office, at the Mav office last week.
Yeah.
I can vouch for it.
Again,
It's definitely cut back.
All of our stuff these days now, you can pull it out of a bag and wear them in a game that day with confidence. Because again, it's insane how much technology, how much time is put into this gear. And you can pull it out of a bag and play like it's been used for a month, and feel great. A lot of flexibility and a lot of comfort. And then
that's good when you're breaking it out. Like if you got a new pair of gloves in a new game, that certainly helps you guys. Good to hear.
Yeah, and then the other glove you'll see, or you guys have seen on the LXM Pro Tour is the Rome NXT, and again, the Rome glove was a huge hit for us 2 years ago, and so we basically just
Is that elephant print? That looks like some
it is.
Okay.
So sweet.
Okay. You might have just got a customer.
He's excited.
He needs the elephant print.
And so the Rome name again sticks with kids. They know what the Rome. They were familiar with the Rome glove, and so now this is the Rome NXT, basically an updated version from the Rome. Again, I don't know what percentage lighter, but it's much lighter than the original Rome, and again, much more comfortable and great feel overall. And
we got some stars and stripes with that elephant print, and I think we could do some business.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, you can.
That is a busy pattern.
Sounds nice. Make it twice.
So, Billy, I want to hear a little bit. So far in the series, you guys have really run out to a pretty solid lead in a couple of games. And STX has been able to kind of claw their way back in, especially this last one. I mean, you guys were up 15-10. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, what do you guys – you know that's an issue, right, moving forward. Is there something you can do differently? Are there older guys you can look to kind of lead the way, or does somebody else need to step up? What's going to get you past that STX late game comeback?
Yeah, I think just being generally smart with the ball going into a fourth quarter with a lead. Not really forcing it. I'm all for pushing the tempo and keeping the game exciting for the kids and fans, and I don't want to take anything away from that. But again, I just think going to a fourth quarter with a lead, just to be a little bit smarter. And again, that's not. I'm not pointing fingers or anything. It's my own fault at times, and a guy like Johnny Christmas, he's I would say our leader of our team, and you can't get a better leader than that. I think for an offensive player, a guy who's been around the game for so long and has had such a tremendous career, and he's done a great job for us, leading us, and I think he'll continue to do great things for us. And our coach JB, he actually sent an email out right after the game, basically stressing on those points, and I think the rest of the team would all agree just to make better decisions going into fourth quarter, and again giving our defense a rest, because again turning the ball over in the fourth and giving it to such a talented offensive team like Team STX is a dangerous thing. And again, our defense does a great job game in and game out, and it's a lot to put on their shoulders to continue to face guys like Sam Bradman and again legendary player like Kyle Harrison so many times in one game. And I think again it has to go on the offense there and just to be smarter and not force a pass into the middle or a skip pass over the top or anything where the ball is in danger of being turned over.
So you're not looking to slow it down all the way and not looking to keep it going fast. But, I mean, you got to keep scoring, right? Because, I mean, if they're putting in 8 1/4, you can't stop, right? You can't put down the –
That's why, I'm not saying to hold it or anything or to hold the ball or anything like that, because you do need to keep scoring and just to score in, I guess, different ways where we're not always force feeding or stuff like that. But It was,
Yeah,
again, an awesome game, a lot of fun to be part of.
You guys are like right there on the doorstep.
Yeah,
I mean, you look. It's a couple of spectacular saves from Matt Russell in Sacramento, a pretty questionable crease call in Atlanta with that Xander Ritz goal, and I mean, you guys are right there. And I mean, you look at Utah. You get that stop on the doorstep from Johnny Rodriguez. I mean, I think it comes down to really who makes the last big play. I mean, because you guys are absolutely every bit in these games.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any question that you guys are really putting it together on a regular basis. And I mean, it's like I'm watching these games. It's 4-1, it's 5-1. I'm like, oh my God, Mav is just gonna like run away with this one.
Right.
But STX, man, they're just gonna run back in you. It's always interesting to see. Billy, is this like the most challenging way to play lacrosse? Because these guys are really starting to get to know your tendencies and your game. I mean, are you going to have to take your game to the next level to see additional success at the LXM? Because you're playing the same defender, right? Or same group of defenders almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes my life a little bit more challenging, but that's on me. Putting more effort and time on my own after work. Working on new moves and working on different styles of play to basically get a step on my D-man or to benefit the team in general off of feeds and stuff like that. So I love it. It's just more of a challenge for me because again we're always playing the same team. So and I'm always going against a guy like McDonald's, who's a tremendous defenseman. So again, it's about me working on on my own and getting better. Even at this stage in my life where I'm getting a little bit older, but again, I can't quit now or I can't stop now. So, just come up with new ways, and I'm sure I could talk to my dad. He'll come up with ways because he's already been
back to the wall.
Yeah, he's already been on me since we've been down here in Charleston.
Right. That's good. I mean, your game has certainly visibly evolved from a fan's perspective. I mean, not to take anything away from you, I think you go with a little less of that reckless abandon that you used to employ, and you're even becoming, more of a feeder, not first necessarily, but really expanding that part of your game. I assume that's been a conscious effort on your part, right?
Yeah, definitely, and that was something that my dad has said to me, no joke, an hour ago when we were over at the fields, at the event fields. Because being playing with a reckless abandon for so many years can definitely get me in trouble.
Or those hips.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with head, again, the head's nothing to mess around with. So
back to the concussion discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
And also it does make me a better player if I'm, not always trying to force it and trying to dodge more than one guy. It makes our team better if I'm able to pull out and find an easy look. Because again, a guy like Crum on the crease is one of the best crease players I've ever had the privilege to play with. He'll catch and finish anything, even if he's not even open. So
it's a throwback.
Yeah.
Has he been? I'm sorry. Has he been your favorite guy to play with? I mean, obviously, Christmas is a legend, but coming into LXM and Maverick, I know you love all your teammates, but who's been the most fun to play with?
Yeah, I mean, Christmas is definitely up there, just because watching him play growing up, and again, a super nice guy and a lot of fun to play with. And again, Crum, a guy with that much intensity is awesome. Before every game, he always looks me in the eye and says he has my back. I say, thank you. I'm kind of
Crummy doing what Crummy does.
Complaining about that. I love that.
I feel like that's an appropriate response. What else could you really say to it?
Yeah, so it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And I'm having a blast with the whole tour.
Well, that's awesome. I really want to thank you guys for coming on and talking with us at length about a number of different topics. EW, Billy Bitter, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. For everybody watching, make sure you head over to bitterlacrosse.com for more on their events and camps. The South Carolina project is really cool. I've heard a little bit more about it. Definitely something you want to check out, especially if you're down south. Bring your team down, get involved. We got another LXM game on November 9th, Dallas, Texas. Doing it big Texas style. That should be another good one. Check that out on the Lacrosse Network. I'm hoping Mr. Chris Marshall will be back there. Everybody, have a happy Halloween. Send us your Halloween costumes to Lax All-Stars. We got Chris Marshall. I mean, You want to take it out with a hit the wall tonight? Because you're looking festive.
Yeah, I'm feeling smarter already.
There we go.
Fabulous.
The one and only Chris Marshall. Well, we'll see you next week. Come on back. I'll actually be on vacation. Mr. Powers is going to be handling the show on his own. We'll see how he does. I'm sure we'll bring in Chris for some reinforcements. Till next time, hit the wall.